this is a long conversation, and we don't want to, in terms of the kind of news we do, we don't want to just keep talking about how bad things are. We want to talk about what the community can do to change things for the better, and what can we do. So if you were running a news network, which I think is a piece of a solution, what do you want us to do? What would you like investigated? What kind of questions do you have you want answered? What kind of debates do you want the community to have? How can we help be a piece of changing the situation for the better?
I guess getting on the ground level, going into the communities where there's liquor stores, where people are hanging out, just like she was saying how she feels unsafe because you have liquor stores in the community. So then there's guys and we've all seen that. There's guys who hang outside of the liquor stores all day and they're selling drugs, or they're just kind of just loitering around, and it makes you feel uncomfortable just to walk by. And those types of things kind of just deteriorate your community. So I think getting in, talking to even the owners of the stores. There are only liquor stores in African American communities. You will not go into a suburban community and find a liquor store in the middle of their block. You will not find it's just certain things that are here in Baltimore that just kind of bring down the communities, because it draws those types of characters, those types of, the drug dealers, the people who are selling this, and all those types of people.
Well, if you take what our friends up top said, both of them, it's part of the setup to get black people, and I would say particularly poor black people, to move out. You can't find I know some of these areas you can't. You got to drive forever even to find a grocery store. All there is junk food on the corner. You can't find a place to buy food. More and more large areas of the city are unlivable. Which is what? That's a real estate play. Downtown real estate in a lot of cities is the most expensive real estate there is. You got all these jobs downtown, and right now most people are living in the county and have to drive all the way into town. But if you could actually make these cities gentrified, then there's lots of people who would probably like to live in the city. But you kind of got to get rid of poor people first.
So the question is,
so there's money. It's not a setup for no reason. It's a setup because there's money to be made.
So if we get rid of the poor black people, where will they go? So will we kill them?
Well, if you look at the numbers, actually a lot of people are going back south. So a lot of people, some people are going into Section 8 housing and stuff in the community. But let me back up one step. That's a good question. This is actually kind of what I'm looking for. We're going to go back and go over this whole discussion. So that's where are people going is a great question. And we'll come back to you with a real answer on that.
All right. I remember my grandmother was talking about Fairfield over in Cherry Hill, and when she was growing up over there. And this one made me think about the government setup. When they was doing developments over there, apparently, I never heard of Fairfield, but she was telling me about it. She used to live there. And they used to tell me they used to bomb they would literally have bombings in the neighborhood with chemical reactions and things of that nature. I don't know if it's true or not. She told me things, but...
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We did a story you can watch on our website. It's called How Bigotry Shaped Baltimore. And there's a guy named Antero Piatella who worked for the Baltimore Sun for a long time, and he wrote this book. They used to do this thing with neighborhoods where they would build this new subdivision. They'd sell houses to all the white families. It was actually, back as early as the 40s, and then even later in reality, right up until the late 60s, it was actually illegal if you bought into one of these places to sell it to a black family. So these were white-only communities. Then the law changed where you could sell to black families. So what the real estate agents used to do is they would go and they would even buy houses for a couple of black families, real estate speculators. Mm-hmm. And then they'd spread to all the white families, oh, you got to sell your house right away because black families have moved in. And who did they sell the houses to? To these speculators. And then they'd make a killing turning the houses over, selling them to black families. And they do the whole thing over again. It's a setup, but it's not a setup for no reason. It's a setup because a lot of money got made in this process.
Also, since you said that, I also think people need to be more educated and then stop being so money hungry about everything. I mean, I was talking earlier. I was talking about how how we have little posters about how realtors will buy your house for 1,000 to 5,000. Do your research. Know how much your house is worth, because and I think this thing is poverty is also happening. I think because of the older generation, when they left to their kids, and because everyone will get that fast money, they think $5,000 is okay and it's worth my house. And which they boarded up for years. I'm looking at Poplar Grove Street. Almost half of Poplar Grove is boarded up over people's houses that were sold.
I'm going to go back to the question earlier. You guys know back in the 60s, the civil rights movement,
Yeah.
it achieved something, and people were really, tens of thousands of people, even hundreds of thousands of people, were involved in sort of a collective fight for rights. Why don't we see that now? Or more of it now? There's a little bit, but why don't we see more of it?
If on the TV all we see is rappers and people just saying like, if you get money you'll be happy, and like, if we don't see no reason to fight, why should we fight? And we're like very like tech savvy, even though it might not seem like it. This generation, we're just plugged in. We need to plug out, and that becomes part of our laziness. Because sometimes I ain't gonna lie, I want my family members to say, "Go wash the dishes." I'm like, no, I gotta like, I'm like always on my phone because like, and it's just laziness, and we don't have like a reason to fight. That's what I think.
Well, I don't understand. I've just heard all the description of
But,
problems.
like, as a
Isn't that a
collective,
reason to fight?
We see the problems, but some people don't like. We don't know the actions to take to fix the problems. We don't know where to go. We don't know who to talk to. How are we going to get this stuff funded if we don't have no money to pay our college tuition? College tuition is an arm and a leg. Yes. Like, how can we fight one problem when we have another problem, like in our daily lives? We don't have time to like. Is there go back to the every man for himself like thing? Like, if I'm personally about to go to college and it's like, my whole life I will be paying back tuition. If I have that problem, how am I going to sit here and try to fight for the community when I'm trying to look out for myself?
Well, why aren't you fighting to lower tuition?
Like how?
With other kids in the
where
same
do we
situation?
start with that.
No, don't give the mic away.
Okay.
No, I mean that. I mean, isn't that part of breaking
Yeah.
out of this? Is that you got to fight? I mean, do you know what happened in Quebec?
No.
Well, you got to watch the real news.
Okay.
What happened?
In Quebec, the students were fighting against tuition increases, and they they got as many as 300,000 people in the streets. And then then the police and the government tried to stop the protests, and another 200,000 came. They wound up with 500,000 people in the streets in Montreal and some of the other cities around Quebec. And the actual government actually fell. The government that was going to raise the tuitions actually lost the last election. It was amazing. We did a lot of stories on it.
Something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is all true. So I'm saying you guys can have a news network at your disposal. You have a building. You have a space. What can we do to change the situation?
We can find kids worthy, like who want to see change, to like be the voice and be the head leader of this movement. And like, if they stand up, maybe other kids who are going through the same things and experiencing the same things, they'll stand up with the leader and like join, like start something.
One of the things we want to do is create a safe place and a good place for creating a different kind of culture. Like, there's some great talent in this city doing, socially conscious, politically conscious hip hop and poetry. I don't think it doesn't have a place to get out into the community in a bigger way. One of the things I don't know if no one wants to hear
I'm
it.
telling you, like, people wants to hear about, stuff that's happening, real stuff that's happening in the community. Now, those who like to think, yeah, fine. But ignorance, I mean, that's the most billionaire around right now. They don't want to just hear about, oh, I'm struggling trying to feed my baby and things of that nature. No, I mean, seriously. It's like
Well, you say no one, but how many?
I mean,
how
not
many,
no.
How
I'm
many
not
of
gonna
you
say
would
no
like
one.
to hear it?
But certain people, a lot of people in my generation, not saying all of us, do not want to hear that. Why do we want to hear that?
Do you?
I love it. I mean, I don't even. I'm not gonna honestly lie to you. I can't tell you who the rappers are right now. I don't listen to any of it. So it's terrible. I feel bad for our generation now, because like now we talking about this now, and I'm thinking like, where will we go from here?
Well, how many people here would like that? To have a place to kind of build a kind of healthier culture for young people?
I do.
Yeah. Well, that's not a bad beginning, you know.
So how could we go about that? That's
Well,
my
how about
question.
weekly hip hop? How about
What was
a
that?
whole? How about a whole website dedicated to it?
That's something to think about.
Well, how about we build it? Yeah.
I think with the civil rights movement, like we all think back to like what slavery was like and what segregation was like. So now we see what we have, and everybody's like, "Oh, we've gotten this far." So there's not really much to complain about, even though we have a lot of stuff still that's messed up. So it doesn't seem as bad as it could be. And then as like civil rights leaders tend to be like these heroic figures, they're not really human to us. So like when she's saying, well, what can I do? I don't know anything that I can do. Like it's about making people that are in this struggle and in this movement actual people and like humanizing them. Like you were talking about like murder victims aren't just numbers, that they're actual people. Like talking about those stories. Like we just went to the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summer and watched the Freedom Summer movie documentary. And it was like actual people, and it was talking about those stories. And like our youth came back, they're like 14 years old, and they're like, oh, we can do it. Like we can do those things. So if we're actually seeing stories about people that are doing like these amazing things, like there are definitely people, and a lot of us know some of those people, but like actually spreading that information that these are people just like you and you can do the same thing.
What do people think of that? I think that's such an important point.
Yeah, I agree with what Kat said. And I also think if you get people out to explore different parts of the state or out of the country, I mean around the country, to see what other communities are doing, then you never know. Like Jim said a couple of times, tells us all the time, that he takes us on trips just so that we can get that glitch for something that we may want to do in life. So I think if you we go explore, or we go to different communities and things of that nature, and we find something that could help us, I really think that could be a glitch in our minds and stuff of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things we have to realize, one of the reasons why people are so disconnected from actually going out and making change is because for most people, or correction, most poor people, it's a war of survival. It's literally a war to make it to the next day and the day after that. And it's really hard to focus on anything else when you're more worried about how you're going to eat and live the next day. And that's something really vital that people sometimes miss. And it's like, it's depressing. You don't want to think about how better things can be when you know that your next day it's not going to be that. It's sad. It's a real like thing that you numb yourself to and just know life is like this, and I just have to figure out how to make it to the next day and the day after that. And you take it one day at a time, but it doesn't allow for that long-term planning and collective vision that would cause another civil rights movement.
Except, I agree with what you're saying, but when people did the sit-ins at those lunch counters that black people weren't allowed to go to, they go to the beginnings of the civil rights movement. It was in southern poverty. I mean, conditions were terrible. And you look at other places in the world where there's been, big transformative movements. It's often been in places where there's terrible poverty. And there's something specific going on here, and I agree with you about this idea of setup. It's this the amount of drugs that came into the communities after the big protests here in the late 60s. This war on drugs. And this is something we're going to do a lot of work on. I mean, the war on drugs should have been renamed, how can we distribute more drugs?
Yes, like, it just I'm sorry, but it just bothers me that, we supposed to be spending all these billions of dollars just to protect, just to keep drugs from out of America. But but how is that happening? Every time honestly, I get a little irritated about this because I feel like you sit here saying we're supposed to spend money on war on drugs, on this and on that. But where's the money going? Are you just paying this? I feel like America's just paying the distributors more money.
Okay, well, that's another good question. Like, see, this is what I'm asking for. Where's the money going?
Yeah,
so we're going to come back. We're going to answer that question. Like, we're going to do investigative work. Where's the money going? And then we're going to come back and we're going to have town hall debates about what kind of drug policy actually makes some sense for the community. But we know some of it we've done. I mean, where's a lot of the money's going to, you know, in terms of building prisons, in terms of the police, in terms of the lawyers and the judges, and it's a whole superstructure of people making a fortune off drug distribution. Not to speak of course, the people directly involved in it, but what other kinds of questions need to be asked in order to get to a vision of a different kind of city?
I want to know, how did it get this far? How did all this violence and drugs and things get this far? How did it become it just bloomed out of the nowhere? I mean, it's been around, but then it's been always under the table. We never talked about it. But now it's like everywhere. So how did we get this far? That's what I want to know, seriously.
Who else has something they want to know that helps get to solutions?
Where are the leaders, and who wants to be a leader? I think when we talk about the civil rights movement, kind of the transition of leadership, there was no transition. Once those leaders were, you know, assassinated, you know, once they were gone, there was no passing of the torch down to this generation today. And that's not to say that there aren't young leaders in the communities who are doing great things, but I think the presence and the value, just valuing wanting to be a leader of something, of a movement, of, you know, trying to help solve, you know, issues in the community and stuff.
We were
like
just
that.
talking yesterday about having a forum kind of like this, with getting some of the leaders from the civil rights movement to come talk with young people about exactly this question.
Well, we need to do it, then.
Because they need to be trained. Like we need this generation to be trained up to be leaders. They have to learn those qualities and what it means to be a leader first before they can take on these huge social issues in which they'll be scrutinized, in which, you know, you'll be criticized and people will talk about you because you're, you know, supporting this or that. But we need more leadership. We need our youth to be groomed to be leaders, especially to take on stuff like that.
Hang on just one second. Can we hear from someone else who hasn't spoken yet? You got it, Mike.
Moving poor black people out of the city, I think one of the issues are like we don't try to like solve like those problems and like I guess try to help improve those people's lives. We just think about how could we like get rid of them. That was the only thing.
Why?
I was gonna say. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it's the system of racism that, you know, works that way. But my really question that I always ask myself is like, how did it get this way, and why is it that like the other poor black people don't want to look out for each other? Which I understand that it's like you gotta live for yourself, and you know poverty, and you gotta think about how you're gonna eat. So I understand all of that, but when you look back to like way back in the day when it was like Black Wall Street, and a lot of those people were poor back then too, but they still support each other any way that they could.
Listen, there's whole sections of Baltimore. I mean, at least half of Black Baltimore, maybe more, is not living in poverty. I mean, at least half the city has jobs, and the neighborhoods are, you drive through them, they look great. You know, the houses are well kept, and so on and so on. What is the culture like there in terms of violence? Is this violence issue mostly concentrated in the most poorest areas, or is it also, in fact, spreading into other sections of the community?
I think wherever you go, you're going to have violence, honestly. For certain things, you're going to have certain issues and things of that nature. But when we're talking about killing people with little stupid things and over drugs, it's crazy. And repeat your question again. So I'm sure
Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, something like 49% of the city is living below the poverty line.
Yeah.
But that means half the city's not. Now, let's say, there's 20-30% of the city is white. But even in the white population of the city, there's a lot of people living in poverty. Less whites living in poverty, but not only. So my point is there's whole sections of the city that are black, working class. They have, they work at Social Security, or they have fairly decent jobs. I mean, how many of you come from those kinds of families? Rich or poor? Not rich. I mean, working class.
Suburban areas?
I'd say working class. You know, people, families have working class jobs and go to work every day and don't live in like the deepest poverty. That's most of you. But you've still all been touched by this violence, right? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, one thing I would really like to know is going back on what people said about why aren't we fighting like to better the community, or why aren't we doing anything to better the community? And you said the greatest upheavals of government come from the weakest point, like the poorest parts of.
No, not always. I just said,
Like, well,
but many have.
yeah, many have. Like,
Yeah.
if we take a look at different countries, how they overthrew government. But, like, are we just afraid of our government to kind of set up things like that? Or, like, what if things are happening like that in other countries, and we're supporting the people doing those things to kind of overthrow their dictatorial governments? Why can't we do that in our government if we want to change something? I mean, it's basically going down to, are we afraid of the people protecting us, or do we just not care about other people, like everybody was saying? Are we just numb to the fact of we have to take care of our community? Like, why can't we rise up and change the own like simple things around our community, while other people can change their whole nation? Like,
What do people think is the answer to that? Or other questions? Yeah.
Can I say one thing? What I can see in Baltimore is that people my age, teens and youth, they would say, I can't wait till I get out of Baltimore, instead of saying, how can I help Baltimore? They'll always try to, like how people say that they're looking out for themselves. So they do what they can to get out of Baltimore, and then just leave Baltimore just to be in that bad state, instead of helping it and making Baltimore a place where they would want to live. So that's what I think why people wouldn't. That's why I think people don't come together, because they're focused on getting out of Baltimore, reaching another level, reaching another state / city, instead of helping Baltimore getting it to that point where people can live in there and be safe.
So if you're helping us run a news network, what should we do about it? How can we help? I mean, you guys can help work with us if you want. And, we have people that are journalists and producers, and we can do town halls, we can investigate things. And I think we can get a big presence in Baltimore. But what would you like to see?
I would like to see like how Ms. Deanna said about getting black leaders to groom black youth and interviewing them, and putting it like making it viral, I guess, because I want like not just people involved in media to see it, but also people like all of Baltimore to see it. Like, I'm trying to think, just so they can see how we need to help Baltimore, because most people don't know the issues, and like most people don't know how to help. They just know the crime. They don't know the positive side of how they can help Baltimore. So.